Last year, the world of hip hop was buzzing with the surprise announcement that rapper Trina had secretly tied the knot with rapper Benjamin Swurv Kearse Jr. The union of these two stars seemed to come out of nowhere, with very little information about their relationship leading up to their marriage. Trina, known for her fiery personality and unflinching presence in the rap game, had kept her personal life mostly under wraps. Kearse, on the other hand, had been a familiar face on the popular reality series Love and Hip Hop Miami, a show that often blurred the lines between reality and drama. With both artists having their own distinct paths in the music industry, the news of their private marriage sent waves of intrigue through their fans and the public. However, in a shocking turn of events just a few months later, the blissful image of Trina's new marriage began to crack under the weight of troubling news. Last week, Kearse found himself in the headlines for a very different reason: an arrest for battery following an alleged attack on a pedestrian. The details of the incident were both disturbing and alarming, with the rapper being accused of following a man home in his car, only to assault him later in a confrontation that escalated quickly. This development raised questions about Kearse's behavior and cast a shadow over the couple's previously blissful image. According to a police report obtained by TMZ Hip Hop, the incident occurred on March 20th, 2025 in Miami, where Kearse was arrested after an altercation that stemmed from an incident nearly 2 years ago in July 2023. The victim, a man who was crossing the street at the time, had reportedly been struck by Kearse's car. The police report explains that Kearse, driving his black Dodge Charger, abruptly stopped at a stop sign, and the victim's hand made contact with the car's trunk. The man understandably was confused by the sudden stop and reached out to explain the situation to Kearse. However, instead of a simple exchange to clear things up, Kearse allegedly became irate and aggressive. The situation quickly escalated when Kearse reportedly followed the man to a nearby residence, continuing his pursuit in his vehicle. The altercation took a violent turn when Kearse, now on foot, approached the victim and punched him several times. According to the victim's statement to the police, the punches were hard enough to fracture his nose. The details of the attack were further corroborated by surveillance footage from the area, which showed the confrontation and aligned with the victim's account of events. The evidence led authorities to arrest Kearse, who was later taken to Turner Guilford Knight Correctional Center for booking. The charges of battery were formally filed, and Kearse found himself facing serious legal consequences for his actions. This arrest, although it involved an incident that took place nearly 2 years ago, raised a multitude of questions not only about Kearse's behavior, but also about his relationship with Trina. The couple, who had seemingly kept their marriage and private lives shielded from the public eye, now found themselves thrust into a media storm. Trina, whose career had largely been defined by her confidence and unapologetic persona in the rap world, was now faced with the uncomfortable reality of her husband's criminal actions. Fans and the media alike were eager to see how she would respond to the situation, especially since Kearse's arrest painted a picture of a man whose temper and actions seemed to contradict the public persona he had built as a reality TV star. While Kearse's actions were undeniably troubling, it was also important to consider the broader context of his behavior. Reality television often magnifies the personalities of those who appear on it, sometimes creating a distorted image of who they truly are. For Kearse, his time on Love and Hip Hop, Miami had showcased a man who was willing to confront conflict head-on and who thrived in the drama that the show was built on. Whether this played a role in shaping his behavior in real life was up for debate. Could the pressures of maintaining an image for the cameras have contributed to his volatile outbursts, or was this just a case of someone unable to control their emotions even when the cameras weren't rolling? In the aftermath of the incident, Trina's fans were divided. Some were quick to criticize her for marrying a man whose temper seemed to have a history of volatility, while others were more sympathetic, choosing to reserve judgment until more information came to light. Trina herself had yet to make a public statement regarding her husband's arrest, which only added to the speculation about their relationship. Was she aware of Kearse's temper before they married, or had she been blindsided by his actions? The arrest also raised questions about the broader impact of the incident on Kearse's career. As a public figure, Kearse had built a following through his appearances on Love and Hip Hop, Miami, and his music career. While his personal life had never been as high profile as Trina's, his involvement in the show had brought him into the spotlight. Now, with his criminal charges and the growing media attention, it was unclear how this would affect his public image moving forward. The hip-hop community, which had long been scrutinizing the actions and behaviors of its stars, was already dissecting the incident, with many pointing to it as yet another example of a troubling trend in the industry, where violence and aggression sometimes appeared to be tolerated. As the case moved through the legal system, there were also broader conversations to be had about accountability. The victim in the situation had suffered physical harm, and Kearse's actions had been thoroughly documented. What consequences should he face for assaulting another person in such a violent manner? Should the fact that the incident had happened nearly 2 years ago mitigate the severity of his actions, or should he still be held accountable for his behavior, regardless of when it occurred? These were questions that not only the legal system would have to answer, but also the public, which had long been invested in the lives of these reality stars. For Trina, the ordeal represented a crossroads in both her personal and professional life. The rapper, who had built a career on her toughness and resilience, now had to navigate a difficult and potentially damaging situation. Would she stand by her husband, despite the criminal charges against him, or would she distance herself from him in the wake of his arrest? The public was watching closely, eager to see how the star would handle the situation. In many ways, this incident was a reminder of the complicated and often unpredictable nature of relationships in the public eye. When celebrities marry or become involved in high-profile relationships, the public is quick to form opinions, often before the full story comes out. In the case of Trina and Kearse, the secrecy of their marriage had only added to the intrigue surrounding their union. Now, with the revelation of Kearse's arrest, the spotlight was on both of them in a way that neither could have anticipated. While Kearse's actions were inexcusable, it was important to remember that everyone, regardless of their fame, is capable of making mistakes. For Trina, the challenge lay in balancing her career, her public image, and her commitment to her husband during a tumultuous time. Whether she chose to stand by him or not, the situation would undoubtedly shape her legacy as an artist and a public figure. As the legal proceedings continue and as the media continues to scrutinize every detail of their relationship, one thing is clear: the road ahead for Trina and Kearse will be a rocky one. Whether they can weather the storm remains to be seen, but for now, their story is one that is unfolding in real time, with every twist and turn playing out for the world to watch. Trina, born Katrina Laverne Taylor, is a force to be reckoned with in the hip-hop world. Known for her fierce lyricism, unapologetic persona, and commanding presence, she rose to fame in the late 1990s and early 2000s with her distinctive voice and raw, bold rap style. She made waves with hits like "Da Baddest Bitch," a track that not only solidified her as a prominent figure in the rap scene, but also gave her the moniker that would follow her throughout her career. Trina's journey in the music industry has been one of determination, resilience, and a series of personal and professional triumphs. However, her path has not been without its share of controversies, particularly when it comes to her relationships. One of the more recent and shocking developments in Trina's life was her marriage to rapper and Love and Hip Hop Miami cast member Benjamin Swurv Kearse Jr. Their relationship, which seemed to be relatively under the radar at first, quickly gained public attention when the couple secretly married in 2024. The news of their marriage was a surprise to many, as Trina, known for keeping her private life relatively guarded, had not openly discussed her relationship with Kearse in the months leading up to their nuptials. Trina's tendency to keep her personal life out of the limelight made her marriage all the more intriguing. Fans and the media speculated about how this union would affect her career and public image. Kearse, who had a growing presence as a rapper and reality TV personality, was a relatively lesser-known figure compared to his wife's iconic status. However, his involvement in Love and Hip Hop, Miami brought him into the public eye, and his connection to Trina added another layer to his newfound fame. In the beginning, the couple appeared to have a strong and loving relationship, with Trina often sharing glimpses of their life together on social media. Her posts depicted a happy, carefree love between the two of them, filled with romantic trips and public displays of affection. However, as time went on, cracks began to form in the facade of their seemingly perfect relationship. While Trina's fans were supportive of her, the couple's union became the subject of scrutiny, especially as controversies began to swirl around Kearse's behavior. One of the most notable and alarming events that marred their relationship occurred in 2025, when Kearse was arrested on charges of battery. According to reports, Kearse became involved in an altercation with a pedestrian in Miami after a minor incident in which the victim's hand allegedly struck the back of Kearse's vehicle. The man, who was crossing the street, claimed that Kearse became angry and followed him home in his car. After getting out of his vehicle, Kearse reportedly approached the man and punched him multiple times, causing a nose fracture. The victim filed a police report, and surveillance footage later corroborated his story. Kearse's arrest, which came nearly 2 years after the incident, sent shockwaves through both the hip-hop world and the Love and Hip Hop fan base. The charges, which stemmed from a violent outburst, placed Kearse in the public eye in a way he never expected, especially since he had previously been known more for his role on reality TV rather than any violent tendencies. For Trina, this was an especially painful moment. As a woman who had built her career on being tough and unapologetic, she had always presented herself as someone who could handle anything that came her way. But the arrest of her husband created a level of public scrutiny she had not anticipated. Fans of both Trina and Kearse were left wondering what Trina's reaction to the situation would be. Would she stand by her husband, despite the serious nature of his actions, or would she distance herself from him? The situation was particularly complicated because of Trina's public persona. She had cultivated an image of being fiercely independent, but her connection to Kearse now tied her to the controversial events surrounding his arrest. In the wake of the incident, Trina did not immediately comment on the situation, which only fueled the media's speculation about the state of her marriage. People were eager to know what Trina's next move would be. Would she publicly condemn Kearse's actions, or would she remain loyal to him? Fans were watching closely, hoping for some kind of clarification. For Trina, this was not just about standing by her husband, it was about protecting her own image and the legacy she had worked so hard to build. Her decision to remain silent spoke volumes about the complexity of the situation. In many ways, her silence was a reflection of the difficulty of being a public figure in such an intimate, personal crisis. As Kearse's legal troubles unfolded, the media circus around the couple only intensified. Trina's reputation, which had been carefully cultivated over the years, was now at risk of being tarnished by her association with someone who had been arrested for assault. For years, Trina had been known for her unrelenting focus on her music and her career. She had become a role model for many women in the hip-hop community who admired her ability to navigate the male-dominated industry while staying true to herself. But now, the woman who had once embodied the strength of hip-hop was facing the challenge of managing a scandal that threatened to overshadow everything she had achieved. Meanwhile, Kearse's behavior had become a subject of intense scrutiny. His time on Love and Hip Hop, Miami had already painted a picture of a man who could be volatile and dramatic. The show, which often focused on the personal drama of its stars, had portrayed Kearse as someone willing to confront conflict head-on. However, his actions in the real world, particularly the alleged assault on the pedestrian, raised questions about his emotional stability and ability to manage his temper. Reality TV is notorious for amplifying personalities, often making them seem larger than life. Kearse's role in the show had placed him in a position where the public's perception of him was shaped by the drama that was so prevalent on screen. This made it difficult for fans and critics alike to separate the character he played on television from the person he was in real life. The arrest and its aftermath were not the first time that Trina had faced controversy in her personal life. Throughout her career, the rapper had been the subject of intense public scrutiny, not just for her music, but also for her relationships. Her previous relationships, particularly those that had been exposed in the media, had often attracted attention for their high-profile nature. As a woman in the hip-hop industry, Trina had always been subject to a higher degree of criticism, especially when it came to her romantic entanglements. In many ways, this latest scandal was a culmination of the challenges that came with being a successful woman in a world that often sought to define her by her relationships. Despite the controversies, Trina continued to be an influential figure in the hip-hop world. Her career had spanned decades, and she had garnered a loyal fan base that admired her unapologetic attitude and her refusal to conform to societal expectations. However, the personal challenges she faced in her relationship with Kearse added a layer of complexity to her legacy. Trina was no longer just a rapper. She was a woman navigating the difficult intersection of fame, love, and public perception. How she dealt with the fallout from Kearse's arrest would ultimately shape how she was remembered, not just as an artist, but also as a person. In the years following the arrest, Trina's public appearances and statements were closely analyzed for any sign of her stance on the matter. Her fans were invested in the outcome of her relationship with Kearse and the toll it had taken on her both personally and professionally. As for Kearse, the consequences of his actions were not limited to the legal ramifications. The damage done to his public image, particularly in connection with the hip-hop community, was significant. His career, once propelled by his appearances on reality TV, now faced an uncertain future. He had been linked to one of the most prominent female rappers in the industry, but his actions had undermined much of the goodwill that came with that association. The relationship between Trina and Kearse, like many relationships in the public eye, was a complex and multifaceted one. Their marriage, initially seen as a happy union, quickly became a focal point for discussion and controversy. As Trina continued to navigate the challenges of being a public figure, she faced the difficult task of managing her personal and professional lives under the harsh glare of the spotlight. The scandal surrounding Kearse's actions forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about her relationship, her career, and her public image. For Trina, the journey ahead was uncertain. Would she continue to stand by her husband, or would the pressure of public opinion force her to reevaluate her choices? Would the controversies surrounding their relationship define the next chapter of her career, or would she rise above them, as she had done time and time again throughout her career? As Trina's story continues to unfold, her fans and the public alike are watching closely, eager to see how she handles the complexities of life, love, and fame.